John, get off of Blue Sky. Why do
Oh,
you
I can't
spend
help it.
all of your time on Blue Sky now?
That's all I do. I can't help it. That's why.
Tell me about this addiction.
So, um, you're aware of a social network called Blue Sky,
I
correct?
am. I am. And I have
It's
an
like
opinion about it, but I am dying to hear yours.
it's like from the people who made Twitter, or Jack Dorsey's involved or
I think
something. I don't
I
know.
think he was, but I don't think he is anymore. I
Maybe
don't
not.
know. Like I think it was like a just like a hey, let's do this thing. I'm out.
Yeah, maybe so. Um, they reached a milestone where you can host your own like data in the network if you would like to.
Okay. And is that like the what do they call it? The activity pub thing? Is that what it is? Is it related to that? Or is it
I
different?
didn't know there'd be hard questions. No, but do you know?
I'm just I'm like making up words right now.
There's a person that's was like from the Ruby community. Now he's pretty well in the Rust community. Steve Klabnik. He's kind of also like a general technology person.
No, I
Anyway,
don't know Ruby people.
he wrote a blog post because of this milestone being reached. He thought it was time to write kind of like a high level overview of like some of the different pieces that are a part of Blue Sky and like why that architecture has him excited.
Okay. And so that got you excited?
And that got me excited. And then I started doing a little poking around, and what I saw. So I have this imaginary world where I write a lot of blog posts, and I'm writing
Yeah.
so many blog posts that I need an automation to post to my socials all of the blog posts I'm writing.
The classic John problem. I need the tooling
I need the
so that I can
tooling.
write all these blog posts.
That's right. That's right. And so one of the first things I thought about was like, oh, I want to be able to, post to Blue Sky from the command line or from a Ruby script or whatever. So I
Yeah.
went
Like you should be able to do it. Like just think about it while you're in bed. And you should
so
have
I
some sort of automation to do that.
so I went looking for Blue Sky client gems because they have an API. And
Wow.
what I found
You have
was
been deep.
lacking. I didn't like what I saw. Basically, what I want to be able to do is say like something dot new, get a client class, client instance, and then be like client dot make a post, create post, and like give it some
Sure.
text. And I passed credentials in when I newed it up, so it knows who I am, and so then it makes the API calls, it makes the post requests, and then suddenly there's a tweet or there's a post on Blue Sky.
Ooh. I think you owe somebody money for that slip up.
Do I have to pay Elon Musk? Shit. Um. Anyway,
Okay.
so then I started thinking like maybe I should make a Blue Sky client Ruby gem.
Because you have
So
time, all the time in the
like I
world,
need
and
an
like you
I
don't
need another
value
project.
your family.
It's so stupid.
Yeah.
So like I started working on it, and like I'm working on it.
Shut up.
I don't know.
Is that what we're doing tonight?
We really shouldn't, but God, it would feel so good. Um,
It's what you want to do.
it is. I don't know why this has captured my imagination, but for some reason it has. Can I just say one more thing about the
You can keep talking about
architectures?
this,
Okay.
please.
So one of the things that has always struck me as a little odd about the way Mastodon works are are like the role that Mastodon servers play in the ecosystem.
Hmm.
And so for the uninitiated, this like um, you can run like a Mastodon instance, and then a bunch of people can be on your instance or not. It could even be a instance with just a single person. Julia Evans, maybe you know that name. She writes those super awesome like zines about
Hmm.
technology. She wrote a great blog post about her experience running and being on her own Mastodon server. And so some of this is coming from there too. We're like, so like you can run your own instance, and it's like a form of moderation because you could like say there's a bad actor on this other, or like this instance is only a bad actor. I want to like block that instance. So that's
Yeah.
kind of a part of it is like, and then also on a particular instance, like someone is the decider about the moderation or like the policies of that server. So that's like another aspect of it. Anyway, it just always has felt a little odd to me. when Threads, I think, came out, one of the things that was going around in the Mastodon community was like, let's defederate them. If they ever do try to join,
Yeah, totally.
be compatible with Mastodon, let's like basically leave them out, and they
Let's
can do
not
that.
invite them to our cool kids club.
And they can do that because of the just like the way that Mastodon is constructed. Okay. As opposed to what I've come to learn, and I'm still a little shaky on some of these technical details, but what I've come to learn is the blue sky model is like basically you're like publishing to these relays, and then these relays can be picked up by an app view, which is an app view is like what blue sky like their iOS client, their Android client, their website, like that's what
Sure.
they are. So like there's like these sources of data. You can run
Yep.
your own now. That's the milestone they reached. They sort of post into these relays. The relays get picked up by these app views. But there's
Sure.
also a feed. There's an idea of a feed. There's an idea of like a moderation. So a feed could be I'm going to drink from the fire hose of all of the blue sky content coming through. And my feed's going to be called Just John's. And so everybody whose name is John is going to be on my feed. And you're going to get all their posts. And maybe that's like, like a automated feed, or you could curate it. You could say only my friends,
Oh, I didn't
Steve
know
and
that you could
John, are
curate
these.
them. I assumed it was just like a saved query.
Yeah. Um, I don't, not perfect information here. I might be missing some of the nuance there.
Sure.
So like there's like a labeling aspect, there's like a way to moderate it, but it's all like kind of decentralized in a way that just meets my mental model of like how I think this stuff should work better.
Sure.
Um, I don't know. That's all I got.
That's
I ran out
awesome.
of steam.
I'm excited that you're excited about it.
Okay.
That's cool to me. There's a couple things that I want to say. One of them is basically I want to pick on Mastodon. That's really all I want to do.
Dunk on Mastodon.
I did not enjoy Mastodon at all. That
Yeah.
experience was like bad. Like it very much felt to me like we probably talked about this. Like I remember being in high school and you may have guessed that I was like a nerd in high school. Maybe,
Same.
maybe not. Yeah. But I remember there was always like there was like a safe teacher that would be like, "Hey, you're cool. You kids like who are outcasts, you can like come hang out
Sure.
at lunchtime."
I had one of
And
those.
then yeah, yeah. And so then like people would go and like they'd go to that teacher's room for lunch and hang out there.
Yep.
But it very much had this feeling of like you had to be an outcast to be in that room, and
Okay.
like we weren't gonna invite
Mm.
Threads. Like we were very
Right.
much gonna be like Threads doesn't understand us, so like this is our closed community, and
Yeah.
that's what Mastodon feels like to me is like 100 different. Every teacher has a closed community, and there's like nothing happening between them, which I think is like almost the opposite of how it's expressed, how the intention is expressed. Like it's
But how did this like manifest for you? Like was it in the content of the toots that you were seeing?
please
Was a
don't
little
ever
exclusion?
call it that again. Um, I mean, what I felt like was like the content that I was seeing was very much like people would say things that they would only say within that closed door, within that room. And so it was like it was just bubbles, and the bubbles very rarely interacted, and like I don't know, like I never felt like I was a part of a thing because
Mm.
I just didn't want to be inside of that bubble. I don't know. And then it just felt like everybody was just really complainy within the bubble
Can
the
you
whole time.
remind me? So you ended up kind of connecting with Threads actually, and being pretty
Yeah,
happy with
I like
the
Threads a lot
the
more than I
the
like Mastodon.
the content there. But I think we also discussed how you're not really trying to replicate your tech Twitter with
I
Threads. You're
think
doing
I
something kind of
originally
different.
was. It's
Yeah.
hard to do on Threads because there's just not that much content. I do like the idea of the feeds on Blue Sky. Like I think they're neat, but when I've looked at them, they're like
Yeah.
also really sparse. And not like it doesn't even the ones that I'm like subscribed to a JavaScript one that
Hmm.
it just I love JavaScript,
Wait,
and
so
there's a
you're
lot of
on
stuff
Blue
I like
Sky and we
about
don't follow each other? What are we doing here?
it. Let's fix that.
Okay,
Um,
but so the
it doesn't
one,
exist on Threads. That community doesn't exist on Threads, so you can't create it.
but I
I've
don't really
like
think
gone
it
other
exists on
directions.
Mastodon or Blue Sky. Well, so I should say for me that the like subset of tech Twitter that I was really wanting to kind of plug into is the Ruby stuff, right? Like I wanted
Yeah,
to
definitely.
follow
I
some of
miss
the
it.
main.
I miss that completely. Yep. Maybe
I
not Ruby
can't,
because Ruby
I
sucks,
can't,
but
I can't, I can't quite find where they've all gone, and I hope they're not still on Twitter because my gosh, Twitter. But like,
dude, I think it is all still on Twitter.
you think it's also happening on
I
Twitter?
do.
Damn,
I will
I
say
want
that
the
I
next.
still get emails. I still get the like daily emails from Twitter. They're like, "Hey, come check out. This is what you missed." And I look at them, and occasionally I click on one if it looks really interesting to me. I'm slightly engaging in it, and I am shameful, very ashamed of it.
No, but I mean, but the motivation is you. There is the content that you're looking for.
Yes, when I do click on one and I go
I
there, it's like,
know.
I can't believe all these people are still here and still
Yeah,
tweeting.
yeah.
Because like I feel so much shame like even just participating in that way because it's a just an absolute dumpster fire and the person that's getting the money out doesn't deserve the fucking money. Anyway, what else did I want to tell you about Mastodon? Oh, moderation. Did you see what was going on like last week or the week before in regards to moderation on
Well,
Mastodon?
weren't they getting like flooded with like
Yeah, they were getting
spam or
DDoS.
something?
Like, yeah, somebody was just like, I don't exactly remember the details at all, but like everyone who owned an instance on Mastodon or was the administrator was just getting swamped, completely swamped with requests or with something. I don't even know what they were getting swamped with, but
Yeah.
they were basically having to like block things left and right. That's the thing that I never understood about Mastodon is like if you want to
Mm.
create your own instance, you're now like a server
Oh my
administrator,
gosh.
and that sounds horrible to
You
me.
know, friend Ash Furlow was burnt out by this task 2 years ago, a year and a half
Yeah,
ago,
for sure.
and
Yep, I
like
remember that.
was
Yeah, that was
running a
before Mastodon was even big.
he was running like a
I mean, I
pretty
think he
big
had a pretty big
instance.
instance. Yeah,
Yeah.
Jinx,
And
Jinx.
even without like dedicated kind of like abuse, he still was like, this is too much work.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I can't remember, but I think that instance shut down just before like the
Hmm.
first mass exodus from Twitter.
Anyway, I
That's
don't
all
know.
that.
I'm like,
Let's. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say one more thing, which is just that I miss tech Twitter that I was using Twitter for,
Yeah.
and I keep hoping to find it again. I was a little disappointed with, again, some of the idiosyncrasies of Mastodon, although I will say Ivory, the iOS app client that I use, and also on the Mac OS client too, is so good. Is such a well done, polished app that sometimes I can kind of forget that stuff. Like I didn't see any of that spam. I don't know if it was because of Ivory or something else. I'm not
Hmm.
quite sure. Maybe because I'm not an instance maintainer, but and I don't know if Blue Sky is where that
I
cluster
think
of
that is a
folks
lot
will
of what
end
it
up.
was. I think it was a lot of like the only people who were affected by this were the administrators, and everybody else was like, "Well, I don't know what's going on."
So, I mean, I've tried a few different things. I've tried Threads. I've tried Mastodon. I'm trying Blue Sky, and I see some of the folks show up when I search for and try to rebuild my network every time.
Yeah, I'm excited
Um,
to follow you and then see who you are following to see if I can like rebuild something because what I have there now is just not interesting to me.
yeah. Anyway, well, wait. So anyway,
We're-
so I started it. So I made a gem, Tiny Sky,
oh yeah.
and then I made a Blue Sky account for it because one of the first things it needs to be able to do is post about when it has releases.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
That makes
mean,
sense.
this is the disease.
The tooling has to be there before
So
you can
dumb.
build the thing.
So dumb.
It's fine. It's okay. Just accept who you are.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
That's cool. I'm excited that you're excited.
Thanks.
And I see another project in our future, maybe.
So true.
Um, we'll get into this
Oh,
tonight,
wait.
and if your like heart is not in it, just like shift. Let's go build your gem.
Steve, you told me that you had an idea for a project.
Oh yeah, do you want to talk about that here?
Yeah, why not?
This is like super secret, man.
Oh, okay. No.
We're gonna make money off of this. No, I'm just kidding.
What?
Yeah,
Prank
no.
stamps ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, I should have used that instead of my stupid taxes as a solution. I'll just a real quick summary of that. We fucked up our taxes and we owe
Ugh,
money, and it's just the whole experience is not fun, and I hate taxes.
of course.
And they tried to make it harder or make it easier for people who are
Who's
filing
they?
jointly. The IRS. Who else?
Don't try
For
doing
the
anything
people who are
easy.
filing jointly to get their taxes correct,
Hmm.
but they made it harder, in my opinion, or they made it easier for you to screw up because that's what we did.
Ah,
Anyways, and also there's a business named taxes exclamation is the solution, which I think is a hilarious name in my area. Okay, so this app idea that I have is about mixtapes, and
oh, okay.
I don't remember how much I told you, but I was taking my daughter Olivia to volleyball with her two friends on the team. So the three of them, and we were listening to music, and I started talking about. I don't know, I was like talking like an old man, like, oh, back in my day, you like owned all of the music that you could listen to. You couldn't just like say I want to listen to the new Taylor Swift album if you didn't own it. And then I started talking a lot about like mixtapes and how much fun it was to make a mixtape. And my daughter Olivia was like, I could see her eyes just light up like that sounds like so much fun.
Hmm.
Because it was like, for me, it was like a few different things that it hit. It was one, like you had these constraints that you had to fit within, you had a limited amount of time, and you had a limited amount of like data to put into this thing, like known or data that you could actually like copy onto the tape. And then it was also like there was like kind of like built this collection up in your head of like I know I have if I have a minute and a half left, I have this one song that I can throw on there that's like a great like 1.5 minute filler, and then all of the aspect of like trying to craft that perfect playlist, which I say playlist because you can do all of these things with a playlist
Yes.
today. But I think the constraints were a huge interesting factor. And then also it was like a physical thing. So I could take
Hmm.
like I made this tape for you, and
Hand
then
it to the person.
I could just like write the songs on it
Hmm.
like a dork and send it to you, or I could write the track list on it for you and then make a freaking sweet cover
Hmm.
with like just like get really arty with it, and kind of arty and crafty, and just have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
And then you would get this thing and it would be great. She seemed to really be excited by that, and then I started just thinking a bunch about like what could you do today to recreate that experience.
Got it.
And so I do know, so I'm a Spotify user, subscriber, or like yeah, member, whatever. I know that they have a thing called Spotify codes where you can share, you can like make a playlist and then like share this basically a QR code with someone. And that's like kind of cool, but I think it would be cool to like have to deal with these constraints, like say
Hmm.
I can only make a 30-minute playlist, like if I go over I can't share this with you. I think
Yep.
that's a fun aspect of it. I think it would also be kind of fun, maybe it would be a pain, but to restrict you to like music in your library only,
Hmm.
so I can't just search for songs that are a minute and a half long. I can only like look at the songs that I know. And then also like it'd be cool if like so maybe I could print out a QR code and then like decorate that piece of paper and send it to you. But also maybe I could just like maybe instead of QR codes we're talking about like passphrases, and I can like come up with a
Hmm.
passphrase that's only like meaningful to you and me. Like I'm trying to think of something. I can't think of anything. I don't know, whatever, some stupid passphrase, and like I can assign it that, and then that's how you would go get it, is like I can make you this
Hmm.
beautiful little like I can start with like some templates, like print out this thing that I can like decorate, do whatever, put the like make the passphrase like a big part of the artwork, and then mail it to you, and then you open it up and you're like, oh cool, Steve made me this mixtape, and now I have to go to this website and I enter this passphrase and it like takes me to this playlist that you made for me, and along the way, like every song is meaningful. So maybe I can, as I'm creating the playlist, I can like add notes about I added this track because like this is a song that was playing the first time we like went back to your place and hooked up, or whatever. So just like all these like little details about how I made the playlist and why the things are on the playlist that are there. That's my pitch.
It's so fun.
I got really excited about it. I haven't really talked to Olivia about it to see if she's excited about it, but I think it'd be fun. Like, it's like working around Spotify in my head. Like, it would be working around the Spotify API and like kind of touching a little bit on features they already have, but like also,
Building some ancillary experiences around it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So I don't know. That's maybe something that we can do in the future too.
I think it would be. I'm just so curious to know how much access Spotify gives you. How much do they allow you to build an ancillary experience around their APIs, or do they want a lot of that stuff to happen on their own page?
Yeah,
That
I
would
mean
be
they have like brand guidelines that say like you have to you can't like if you're gonna display a song, like it has to look like it would look on Spotify,
yeah,
basically. Like use the
but that's
artwork.
okay
Don't edit the artwork or
because you
whatever.
see those Spotify embeds and they look
Exactly,
attractive
exactly.
enough to not like offend me, and I could see
Yeah, for
them
sure.
kind of being a part of a designed experience.
For sure. And I think I think there's some sort of discussion to have about how much of the playlist building do you just do in Spotify versus how much of it do you do within this experience. If you just build it in Spotify and then like you can definitely like read a playlist through their API. We
Sure,
can like churn through it all and see like, oh, you're like 3 minutes and 12 seconds over. Figure out what to do about this. I'm not letting you ship this thing until you get under
right.
this amount of time. I don't know.
I think it sounds super fun.
I think it sounds fun too. We have so many other things that we're interested in doing, but we're 23
This
minutes in
is
and we haven't started this stream.
yeah. This is the like the Tinkerer's Dilemma or something.
Yes.
Okay. Um,
I don't have an
mm,
agenda for us
I was
today.
gonna ask if you had an agenda.
I left like this is kind of like on you. Like you're just like going places, and
That's
I know that
fine.
we had last time we had some unit tests or some kind of tests. I don't maybe end to end tests. I don't remember exactly. We had some tests that you were trying to get to pass, and we didn't quite get them passing. So I just want to stand back. I actually am gonna walk over there to turn my heat down, and then John, do you want to take over and like
I do.
show us
Let
what's up?
me share my screen. Entire screen. Screen one. Oh, I gotta do that thing where I make my screen all tiny. Uh, Display is. I think I do this one.
That
How's
looks
that?
pretty good to me.
Looks pretty good. Okay.
Yes. I also like that we're not in Vim right now, so the colors are very easy to
Oh
read.
God. Oh, Steve, I
It's okay.
confess to forgetting to look for a better Vim theme, and we're only here for a moment while we remember why we're in Vim.
In the readable
Um,
one? Oh, yeah. Oh, okay.
so, where we left off in terms of the Playdate game was kind of messing around with what would it be like to send a crank, kind of like a number of ticks to my server. And so we were kind of like futzing with what this URL
Yeah.
might look like.
We
We were
made a
even like
good URL. We like put a lot of time and effort into that URL.
we were thinking restfully that you'd have crank users plural with an identifier, and then crank counts plural with new, and then you pass in an argument for ticks.
Perfect.
So that led us to let me get myself a little more organized here.
You maybe bump the font size up a little bit here.
I think I'm gonna actually just go back over here then, because it's like everything will be out of whack if I just no. What just happened?
I
One
saw your face
moment.
flicker.
I did the wrong
I think it's the wrong
display.
monitor.
Yep, that's exactly right. Okay, so it's kind of embarrassing that I have income and expense report as the last commit, but that's okay. We haven't even. I don't know where. Like I think we're green. Let's see. But one thing we did was we used a system test to drive out actually some building of an HTML page. I have started the server, so I could go to some of these routes.
Ooh, we've got a failing test.
Fabricate. Oh, yeah, this should be factorybot.create.
That's a different test data generator.
Yes. So there's FactoryBot and there's Fabricate. I use FactoryBot in this project, so you can see that by looking here. So these are all the things. Okay, so I guess I thought we were further along than this.
We were like just writing code right up until the end. I remember we put that "we don't want liars" comment in. I think that was the last line that we wrote.
Okay, that's great. So switch this over to FactoryBot create. I now have a failing path I can put in here. Doesn't really matter, but I'll include the line number. Okay, so we need to touch a spec factories crank.
So the error message says factory not registered crank user. Is that right?
That's exactly right. There's crank user. And I always forget how these work, so I go steal somebody else and plop her in. All right, so we need a crank user. Let's remind ourselves by looking at our SQL file here. Crank. What?
Nope. We didn't do any sort of like data migration.
All right, that's fine. So what's going to happen? Well, we'll see. So I'm just going to do this because that is technically sufficient to change that error message. Okay, so I'm claiming that crank user is a thing. It's not a thing. I'm going to touch at models crank user RB mod crank user class crank user application record. Feel free to give me questions, thoughts, comments. I'm just kind of going to breeze through some of this.
Yeah. So this is now you created when you created this application, this thing that inherits from application record. This is now a thing that would be in the database.
Right, and you can see that that active record is trying to reflect on the Postgres database to understand what a crank user is, and it's like that's not a thing.
Right.
And it's true, it's not. So now we need to use a generator. So bundle exec Rails generate migration, and we're going to call
data migration, like database migration.
Yep, that's exactly right. This will be called create crank users. Boop.
That's just the name of the file.
Yep. So we get the timestamp, the current timestamp, and just like by convention, if you're creating something, you put the create word there, and then you like put the plural of the thing that you're making. Okay, and then we have a little boilerplate here filled in for us. Now, what goes in here? We at least need a code, apparently, because we have a crankuser.code.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably like a t.string. So that means like in this little migration DSL, string would mean like a varchar kind of situation in terms of Postgres.
And the timestamps was there initially?
Yeah, so that's just done for us by the Rails generator because you basically always want a created at and an updated at, and you can opt out of them if you so choose, but they're going to throw them in there for you to start.
Okay, so we'll have a code on the crank user. That's all we know for now?
That's all we know for now.
Okay.
So I'm going to do bundle exec Rails db migrate, and that will run that migration, create that table. And then I'm going to go back to my rspec command, and it's going to be different, I think. Hey, it is different.
It's a lot of blue.
Huge stack trace. Okay.
I think I saw an element not found somewhere.
Hash
Oh, no route
controller routing
matches.
error. No route matches. Get crank users crank counts new. Fair enough.
Did
We
we
can try
not
that.
define that route?
We did. Or we intended to. Let me look at this error message again. This is not what... See how it's like...
Can you scroll to the bottom of the blue stuff?
Yeah.
I noticed something interesting down there. It may or may not be related, but about, yeah, 2 lines up. Unable to find link or button create. Is that because we didn't, is it not even really, which of these is the correct error? Because
Yeah,
those seem like 2 different things.
I'm not sure. Let's also, it also, when you're doing a system test, one cool thing is that it will take a screenshot of the headless browser it's running, and you can just like open it. So I'm going to click on it. Okay.
Okay, so you are getting a server error that this route, that new route does not exist.
Yeah. Okay, this is unexpected.
So this sounds like an issue with our routes file for sure, right? Or is it a combination of like a route, the route that we defined also needs a view and you don't have a view?
I'm not sure. When I see this error that you pointed out, I notice that it's happening on our spec line 7, which is now 8, which is clicking on. So then I'm thinking, I wonder if it is doing something. So I kind of want to like have it do that screenshot thing.
So this will just kind of like, this is like a debug.
Yeah.
It'll open that page for us. No, it will not.
Okay.
Could you highlight the red so that I might be able to read it? Like just like select it with your cursor. Because I can't read the red on black. Yeah, like that.
I'm getting confused.
So, I mean, it seems like 6 is what's failing. And I don't know why that error at the bottom says that 7 also fails, but like if 6 failed because it couldn't get to that new URL, then of course it also wouldn't find the button.
You know what? Let's make a crank user and open our development browser and see if we can do this. So what if I said crank?
So you just opened up Rails console is what you did, right?
Exactly right. Yep. Not new. Create. Okay, so I got crank user with ID of 1.
Okay.
Oh, this is using the code. And code is nil.
It needs like an ID.
Ah. Is this the problem? I'm kind of cheating here, but I'm wondering if that's what's going on.
So what it's actually visiting is the URL crank users / is it nil in the URL?
I guess.
Is that what you're thinking?
The error message
is it just like blank?
A little. Yeah, I would expect to have seen like 2 slashes with like nothing between them.
Yeah.
Not quite what we saw, but okay. So this is better because it's no longer complaining about the path. It's only complaining about unable to find link or button create. This is the error message I was hoping to see, because then that would indicate just that like I probably just like made some bullshit HTML page and need to make something better.
Yep.
And if we click on this,
making a bullshit HTML page is kind of your brand. Let's be real.
Create your cranks, foo. Like this is what I was hoping to see.
This is classic John.
Yeah, it's classic John. Okay, so back to. Okay, so we're closer, and now I'm gonna close some stuff up. Okay, so we made a bullshit HTML page. Let's make a less bullshit HTML page. So go to our view folders.
It's like the goal. That's like the constant goal in development. Let's make it slightly less bullshit.
That's right. This is crank counts new. Okay, so we need a button.
We do.
So I think what we want is form with crank count do F, no, form, because we're adults. And then I think it's like form dot text field
Okay.
ticks. And then you can be like form dot submit. Create. Okay, so this is a little bit
Do you
of
need to end that block?
you don't, because I'm in a HAML file, which
HAML
is
doesn't require ends. Got it.
weird.
Okay.
I know.
Indentation is all it needs.
That's right. So this should result in a form tag being spit out. It will also do some nice things like injecting a like a hidden field that contains a CSRF value to
Token.
So it does all that kind of horse shit to
Yep.
improve the safety of the form. This should be an input of type text, and then this should be a button of type submit, I think. Well, let's just see.
On line 3, where we say form with crank count,
Yeah.
what does crank count represent there?
Yeah, I cheated. Controller. Crank counts. So we should expose.
I mean, I don't know why you cheated. Yeah, like, I think you think that I know what you did wrong, but I actually have no idea.
Crank count. So crank count is a method. So what should happen is if I don't do this expose thing, what it should say is like undefined. I don't know what a crank count is.
Sure. But the crank count refers to like it's a property on the what are we looking at? We're using that a crank. We're looking at crank user.
See, these are views, so it's a little weird. But like we Rails by convention like pushes you some stuff that you can use to render your views, but you kind of got to play by its rules. Back in the day, people would always use instance variables. There's a gem called decent exposure that came out of HashRocket that switched that over to more like instance variables so that you get better error messages instead of like not realizing you have a nil where you have one. Anyway, so this expose crank counts is the same thing really as like crank count.new. It's kind of like a shortcut for that. So basically what we're doing is we're like newing up one of these things, passing it to our form, and then our form can kind of like start setting some of those properties. It's a little hand wavy, but that's the idea anyhow.
So I think I'm still a little bit lost. Like, if we're talking about the actual HTML that gets rendered here, you said that there is a form tag. I'm guessing that comes from line 3 form with, like it's going to emit a form tag.
Yep.
Where does the crank count fit into the HTML that gets emitted? Does that question make sense?
So the thing is, this form, like this construct works for a form that is a new, not yet created model, and a model that is created. You're trying to update it. So when it's a new one like this, it's much less interesting. But if it were existing, then the contents of this text input would be the ticks property of the crank count model. Would populate it for you.
That makes sense. So if the crank underscore count on line 3 does not directly appear in the HTML. What appears in the HTML is all of the properties, like on 4, where we say a text field for the ticks property that pulls it from the current crank count object and will like hydrate the value there.
Exactly. So.
Okay. Cool.
Yep. Awesome question. Okay, I want to see what kind of error message this gets us. Okay, so I was making a bunch of stuff up there, including that we have a crank count. So now I need to touch at models crank count IB, because all I have done so far was crank user. I need crank.
I thought I was not remembering something about this. I thought I just like forgot that we created this model last time.
Nope. Me too, actually, if I'm being honest. Record.
You spelled application wrong.
We'll get there.
Yep. So we're going to want, there was some property we want on there, right?
Yes.
Ticks? Is that what it was?
But as happened last time, the actual error we get is about the database. Because the first thing Active Record's going to do is try to reflect, and it cannot. So back to this migration deal, and this time we're create crank counts. I still have the other one open. I do not. No problem. Okay, T migration. And we know we're going to have an integer called count ticks.
Before you're done here, I just noticed in our test, in our spec, we had another property that we were looking at. Do you want to also add that one right away?
Cranked on.
Like 12. Yeah. So this is what, last time we talked about this, I was thinking that the cranked on would be, I think, created by the fact that it says t.timestamps, but that's different. That's just going to be like created, whatever.
Or is this like date time? Let's look this up.
You're the Rails expert.
What? What is happening? Oh yeah, guides. Be on Rails. There we go. Jeez. Okay, we want to go to the migrations page. There's like a list of types. I mean, honestly, what I do is I just like page through this like a dummy.
Yeah, if you, I mean, like if you search for date time, does it turn anything up? Or like t.datetime or t.timestamp?
Yeah, date time is definitely what I want. Okay, ticks, cranked on, timestamps. We also get to do belongs to.
Ooh, relationships.
Yes. So then this will set up the foreign keys for us, or the foreign key. I think that's it. B Rails DB migrate. Wonderful. And now we should get a different error.
So now you get wrong number of arguments given one expected 0.
I'm probably doing form with wrong. Because again, I don't ever do this from memory. I always like look at docs.
Yeah. Or you already have an example that you're copying from.
That's more likely. Form with do form. Okay, so that's not.
But so ours said form with, and then we had a thing. That's different than that line, right?
Right. So this is the basic form. We want the one that's like talking about like with a model. Blah, blah, blah. Yes, we know, or I know. You don't care. Okay, here we go. Oh, you got to use
model colon.
Use a keyword. That's fair. I could have read this one more second before I just bounced away, but yeah, it looks like that. Yeah, form.submit. Okay. Crank counts path.
What's that?
So I think what's happening is it's trying to infer a path for the form to post to. And what it does by default is incorrect because we decided that our route should be nested. So I'm going to try something. It's a little bit of a, I just have a vague memory from my past. Crank user. Crank. So I think it's like to tell it that like It needs to post to a path
Ah,
that includes the identifier of the crank user and this thing. Um,
okay.
do that. I gotta do this.
I trust you. Couldn't
Okay.
find crank user with
Oh,
ID ABC.
so this is actually really
Oh,
good red.
okay.
Do you have a thought about why?
So I think I remember in our spec that or in our not fabricator, factory, we created it with a specific property of ABC, but I don't remember which one it was. But I think because of those two different variables in the URL, like it's looking in the wrong place for it, or it's like grabbing the ABC from the wrong place, basically, like
Yeah,
associating it with the wrong thing.
it might be easier to see if I split this against the routes file.
Mm-hmm.
And we go here. And it doesn't really show it. What if I do Rails routes .ag crank? Okay, so I'm gonna see. Look, it's like crank users crank _user _ID. So it's
Mm-hmm.
expecting an identifier in that route. What we're giving
Mm-hmm.
it is a code. Something's got to
Ah, got it,
change
got it,
here.
got it. Yep.
Either we have to send it in the ID or we can't use these generated for us routes because they're not actually doing the right thing. I'm tempted to just like cheat for a second here.
Yeah.
And
I mean, if it
the
gets
way
you too
to
green,
cheat,
that's
the way
fine.
to cheat this would be in the controller crank counts. I can be like crank user find by code params crank user ID. You got it right, valid Ruby, John. So because of this part of the route, I know that for me, on my behalf, Rails will populate the params hash with a value by that name. I know, and you know, that it is actually the code of the crank user, not the ID. So it's mislabeled. I'm not really doing the right thing here. I'm bucking convention.
Yep.
But I'm curious if we can like
I
get
think
past
that's
this
fine.
and keep moving. Even though this is not what I would want to like actually commit to production or deploy to production or whatever. Anyway.
There is no production.
That's true. Boy. Okay, this is actually great red as well.
Action create could not be found for crank counts controller.
So this means,
is this what it's trying to submit to?
Yeah, we like pushed the button on that form.
Cool.
And then we don't have the rest of it built, and so it's complaining to us, which it absolutely should. Before I do that, I want to make sure. Okay, right. So this ticks in the URL, in the params of the URL, is not going to just automatically pop into our view. Okay, but that's not my error. My error is that
That's later.
Yeah.
That's future John.
Create. So we need a create method here. And what we want to do is like if crank count.save else. So here, here we want to, what do we want to do? Okay, let's rewind a bit. So you crank as hard as you can on your play date. And you have a number of ticks that you feel very proud of. And so you generate a QR code. You grab your you grab your phone in your other hand. You to open that page in a browser. it comes to a page where you can hit create, and then
It makes
I
a
don't know.
stamp of that moment, like it puts something in the database to say you got 7 cranks today, and then potentially shares that somewhere, right?
Yeah, so
Gives
like
you a URL that you can. Well, no, because you can't
you've got a
browse the
form,
web
you
from the
click
thing.
create. What's the page you go to? The page just like echo back to you how many
Congratulations
cranks.
on your 7 cranks.
Yeah, I think that's what it does.
And then like something on the page will be like share this to Twitter
Yeah. No, blue sky.
because tech Twitter is still there.
Redirect to crank user crank count path. Crank count. Oh, I need the crank user too.
What is crank user
So
crank count path? You got some explaining to do.
I sure do. So this is like
More
crank
Rails
users
convention.
ID crank counts ID. So it's like we made one, we put it in the database, now we're going to show you it.
So I guess what I'm wondering is you're redirecting to something named crank user crank count path. What is that? What is crank user crank count path?
It's
Is
a
that a
URL.
route?
Yes.
It's a route that's like, is it defined in those? It's not defined with those in our routes.rb. It's like another convention thing, like because we have crank users and then inside of it crank counts, it effectively strings all of the like puts all those substrings together to say, oh, route named crank user underscore crank count underscore path. Okay.
Yep. And the way that I get it into the actual routes file here is I do this show. So this would be the show
Okay.
in REST lingo, Rails' version, dialect of REST lingo. This would be the show action of the crank counts resources nested inside of the crank users
Yep.
resources.
That makes sense to me.
Phew. Okay. Oh boy. No. Yeah. Okay. So redirect to, and then it's like else render. I don't know. Let's come back to the sad path.
No else yet.
No else yet. We need a
Fusion
private,
on.
and we need a def crank count errors, or is it like params? Might be that. I gotta go look at the docs. Decent sculpture. Blah blah blah.
This is like a dangerous name for doing searches.
Params. It's true. Gotta be careful. Okay, so mass assignment vulnerabilities are a thing, and one mitigation of that attack is to be suspicious of all parameters that are sent in. That's the approach Rails takes. And so in this method, what I'm trying to do is provide a allow list so that I can't get hit with a vulnerability I don't expect. So
Sure.
params is by default unsafe. So you start by saying, come on, you gotta help me out.
Is that like that's like dynamic stuff,
Require.
right?
Require crank count. And it's like permit. Yeah, permit ticks. Oh, and
Cranked on. Third one.
cranked on. Thank you. And really, I should be an adult and put those in alpha order.
Yeah.
It's just two things. Come on, John. You ever use a keyboard? Okay. So this is just like the way that Rails, deals with that math assignment stuff. How you doing? So far, so good.
I think I get that.
Okay. Wow, 5 minutes. I shouldn't
Yeah,
talk about.
man.
I shouldn't have talked about Blue Sky so much. Okay. No route matches. Okay, this is actually good red too. So it saved it, and it tried to redirect to this crank user crank count path that I was so proud of typing out. But
But
I
that's
don't
wrong.
have any. Like, there's nothing to show. There's no action. There's no HTML. What are you trying to do to me? So I need to touch at views crank counts show.html.
Oh yeah, because you added the show to the list of actions, methods,
Yeah.
whatever
So
you
like
call it,
Rails is listening. Okay,
verbs,
it receives the request, but it's like, well, what do you want me to do
but
with it?
doesn't have anything
I
to
have no
draw.
instructions. Yeah.
Got it.
Okay, so I made that. So tview crank counts.
So you can make the most horseshit view here to get it green or to get it further.
And then it would be like maybe a p tag. It's like crank count dot fix. Maybe I could do better than that. How about you cranked?
Change the brightness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Super proud.
Yeah. Okay. Can I? Oh, I can even increase the brightness. Great. Okay. So now what do we think will happen?
No route matches show. It's missing the route, which doesn't seem like what we talked about.
Huh? URL. So, okay.
Missing
Not talking.
required keys.
Action controller URL generation error. Oh, I might have been like a step ahead of myself. Let's see here. Okay, so it's pissed about being able to generate the URL. Okay, so maybe I thought I was doing something cool here, and I was wrong.
Is this related to the like cheat that you did before,
Yeah,
where
I
you took
wonder.
the ABC,
Mm-hmm.
which was the code, but then pretended it was the ID, and now we're on like the other end of it, where like we're expecting the URL to be based on a code, but there is no code or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you could be right. Why is it bad? Oh, and then this would be like what? Crank. This would be like ID. This is so messy, but
Is that what you want? Is the ID is crank count?
oh, thank you. So I guess what I'm trying to finesse here is use the user's code as the crank user ID, but use the ID off the crank count for the ID. Ugh,
Yeah.
gross. No one feels good about this. Huh. Okay, so now it's trying to tell me that my crank
Method
user
code for nil.
Ooh, I made a mistake here too. This should be crank user dot like these two need to connect.
Yep, totally. Crank count sub-0 or something. That first.
Oh, the thing is, it could be new or it could be existing.
Right.
How does this work? Who knows anything?
John, can I do a time check on you?
Oh my gosh, yes, you should. This is good
Do you
enough.
feel like we can get this done in a couple minutes? No, we're like
I'm like seeing the cracks in the
okay.
the thing here. I need to
Do you
stop streaming.
do you want to just like connect these dots before the next time we hang out,
Yeah.
or do you want to do it live?
No, I think that I should get past some of this stuff. I should deal with
Okay.
this code because we don't want to leak user IDs. So there's got to be a better way to do that.
Yeah.
It probably just means I need to do some things by hand that I was doing all like automatically with some Rails magic.
Sure. Yeah. Make us a PR so that we
Yeah,
can look at it and be smart about stuff.
love it.
So then next time, I don't know, like we'll be once we connect that, where are we going? Like what if we have that form, are we oops, I'm sorry for the bump. Are we like is there more to do in the Rails land, or are we switching back to the Playdate side, or where do you see us going?
We need to be able to get the user's code into the playdate. And so I
Yeah.
kind of want to talk to you about some strategies. I have
Yeah.
some like mad science thoughts that you need to
Cool.
talk me down from.
Oh, no, I'm not gonna talk you down. I'm gonna find a result in the most burning.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, so next time we'll burn
Okay.
the city to the ground. John,
What I
thanks
need.
for hanging. Thanks for doing all the driving. Thanks for the like 25-minute chat about Blue Sky. I love you.
I will DM you on Blue Sky in a minute.
Okay. But you didn't
Goodbye. I
say
love
I
you too.
love you.
Goodbye. I love you too. Love you too. You hang up first.